So we're going on the internet now.
We are going. We are going on the internet. Yeah. Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to week number 3 of CoCo Talk. CoCo Talk is now fast becoming the hottest weekly talk show featuring the Tandy Color Computer, because we've done this now 3 weeks in a row. God knows why. I guess we just like to hear ourselves speak. I am joined by a panel of a bevy of beauties, if you will. So from left to right, I've got Mark Overholzer. We've got the immortal John Linville. We've got the prolific John Strong. We've got the very Neo from the Matrix looking David Ladd. And special guest today, all the way from San Quentin Prison, Kip Kuhn. How you doing, Kip?
Fine. That is actually pronounced Manning, South Carolina.
So we are, be it no surprise, there is never a plan or an agenda when we do this. It's always a last minute seat of the pants type thing. But because we love the CoCo, we never seem to run out of things to talk about with the CoCo. I guess I will start off just by talking about kind of the highlights of my weekend. So if you missed the interview with Chris Latham, I really enjoyed that. I thought it was really great speaking to Chris, who created Donkey King and the Sailor Man and the Dancing Devil. So I thought that was a great interview. I'm being modest, but I'm also very critical of what I do, and I will say most of my stuff I'm embarrassed to watch later, but this was one of the few ones that I'm not. So I thought it was a good interview. I thought he had a lot of cool stories, a very interesting guy, and I look forward to many, many more interviews with CoCo people in the future. So I enjoyed that. Did anybody else get a chance to catch that? I know you were there for a while, Mr. Linville, and I think Dave was there.
I haven't seen it yet, but I want to look at it.
For dinner, and the mobile data didn't cooperate with us too well on that one.
Oh yeah, you guys lost your iPad. You lost connection, I think, is what Boise was saying when you were heading out to dinner.
Yeah. So anyway, it seemed like a pretty good interview, and because the first part of it, always good to have coming.
Yeah, your audio is kind of coming and going there, John. I think we lost John's audio for just a second there. Yeah, I think the cool thing about what I enjoyed about that interview too is the John, are you still talking? Can you hear us? We have some technical difficulty with John.
I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, we lost you for a second. You were starting to break up on us, and
I can find.
You're kind of coming and going there.
There's some kind of argument.
John, you back? Okay. Well, hopefully John will cut back in. I was going to say the thing that I liked about having Curtis Boyle and Nick Morentis there is that they both actually had interviewed him separately at different times. So I think, Nick had written a book called Coco Nuts, I think it was called, and he interviewed a lot of developers, and Chris Latham was one of them. And Curtis Boyle had also interviewed him via email years ago to, for information to put on the Color Computer Games List website. So it was nice having those guys there. I thought that was a great interview, and I think, if anything, kind of the silver lining is possibly getting Chris Latham back into developing for the CoCo. Kind of like, well, again, I don't want to reveal anything. I don't want to make anything public until it's ready to be made public. But let's just put it this way. So yeah, it'd be nice to see if Chris will get the bug and maybe work on some programs. Speaking of working on programs, how are you doing up there, Mr. John Strong?
Oh, all right. We're a little behind on things, but that's the way it goes. And some of the things with decisions made, and one was to wait and see what John Linville was doing with his sound on the chips, since we were both interested in the same chips and didn't want to duplicate efforts. And so the other was this part we talked about in our interview with Alan joined me. And we're planning to have music and stuff with games, and he's supposed to compose some music for me. And so we have all those things in the work, but that kind of slowed things down. We got to get those things running. And so it's like, okay, do I go ahead and release the game with what I have, or do I wait to add the hardware music to it? The decision was to wait.
Okay. And we're talking about right now, this is still the Dr. CoCo, the Dr. Mario clone?
Yes, that was the one that was close enough that could have been released.
Okay.
And I just really wanted not to do another one without the hardware sound.
Right. And so go ahead, sorry.
No, you're fine. So that's kind of just being delayed while Alan's getting used to the hardware. I've got some hardware here I need to play with to get used to it and wire it up and compare notes with John Linville at the fest and see exactly what he's doing, because he's going in the direction that I was planning on heading. Okay, and so as if we can keep it compatible, that's going to make it easy for both of us and other people possibly.
Okay.
To use the hardware chip, because then we can share information between each other.
You just touched on something I was going to ask you. That makes a lot of sense, to share the information.
Don't have much to share with John Linville yet, but I've let him know if he needed anything from me, I was available.
Mm-hmm.
And I have my first version of my MIDI to the sound chip converter, and the next version that'll be better, will do more different tones at once, is waiting on to get some sample MIDI code from Alan. And I also looking at the other soundboards that are available, and one is the built-in virtual sound chip in the Cyclone CoCo, as I call it, since it hasn't been officially named. That's Rogers Taylor system. And then Zipster has a board, which I've got a case just about finished for it. It's a prototype case.
Nice.
Okay, that has the Yamaha chip, which is very similar to the AY, which is being used in the Cyclone. And so I've been reading up on it, to how to program it. And one of the things that I'm looking to do possibly with these is to write overlays for BASIC. So instead of BASIC generating the sound, the hardware can do it.
Very cool.
And that might be expended more, a little bit more than what the BASIC can currently do. Because BASICs in some of the other machines, such as the MSX, the Intel Spectrum and stuff, did have expended play commands. So that you could actually have, I believe on the Spectrum, you could have 3 notes going at once. You can also have select noise and things like that. And so how far I'll get along with that, I don't know, but I'm going to do at least a basic overlay, so play will do it.
That's cool.
Because it depends what, how excited I have to get to it after I get the basic to it. because
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
my primary focus on CoCo development is games. Okay, and so sometimes see some cool stuff and do some things else. It remains to be seen, and I don't know if it's public information or not. There is another soundboard that is in the works, and Alan does have a prototype, and I believe I'm supposed to be getting one.
Okay.
And that actually has 2 of the sound chips, so that makes it quite interesting.
Very interesting. Go ahead. Sorry, I keep stepping on you.
So, that's okay. So we're going from, famine to feast on our sound chips.
Yeah. I was just going to say, and I was just going to bring everybody up to speed, too. In case they missed the interview, we had a much lengthier interview with you and Alan Strong. So everything you're just talking about right now is basically add-on sound hardware that you're kind of working on and prototyping, and the plan is to build it into cartridges so your new games will feature hardware sound that is better than the CoCo's natural sound ability, which is a great feature. One of the things you just touched on again, which we also kind of mentioned in that interview too, is it's starting to sound like, like you just said, there's becoming now a plethora of sound solutions for the CoCo. And I can see that this can start to possibly create a challenge with a fragmented market where, which product do we use and how do we develop for it? And so standardization would be great. And you also touched on what I think the CoCo crew mentioned in their last tech discussion is when does it become stealing when you sell a project that somebody else has already done, and what's the right way to go about it? And it sounds like the fact that you and John Linville are already discussing this because you are using the same sound chip. There's a million positive reasons why you guys should collaborate on this, because you can both develop products that would be compatible with one another, and the product you develop will hopefully be compatible for other developers to plug it into like a multi-pack and use that sound chip for other games that maybe aren't on a ROM cartridge. So there's a million reasons why collaboration is a great thing, and I'm glad to hear that you are doing that. And the CoCo sorely needs a sound solution, sound as in music and sound.
Well, and there's going to be at least 2 add-on cards that will use a different chip than John and I are looking to put in our games. And there's some reasons for that, and I can explain that real quick. Just give me one moment. I'll open Zipster's card, his case, for his solution. And
if anybody doesn't know the name Zipster, by him just mentioning Zipster is the code name for Ed Snyder, who is one of the chief architects of most of our current CoCo hardware solutions.
Okay. Yeah. If you can see this, if you can see this is the sound chip. Okay.
Okay.
That Zipster, one of his friendly competitors, is building into sound cards for the CoCo.
Okay.
The one that we're planning to use on
that whole chip, that chip that looks like it's the size of the CPU, that's the sound chip?
That's the sound chip.
Okay, that's a big one.
Yes. That is an issue for game cartridges.
Ah, yes, to embed it into a ROM pack, you have limited real estate with the other ROMs.
Okay. Now, it will apply some support. We showed this in the other interview.
Okay.
But if you can see through the mess of wires on the breadboard here, the 16-pin zip chip here is the sound chip that John and myself was playing with.
Gotcha.
Okay. Now, it does require some support chips, but still, as far as size, if the 40-pin one on the other requires support also. So we can make a smaller, less expensive, just due to the size of it. And we can keep the size reasonable using all retro era chips. Okay, so it's actually something that could have been produced in the day, even though we're doing it now.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of a nice thing about this chip. Okay, both the chips have some advantages. The 40-pin chip, it has 2 ports on it. The reason why they can do things like the Atari joystick ports. Okay, and to me, as I'm thinking like, okay, we can do that without that, but each to their own. Okay, it allows an unconverted, Genesis or Atari joystick to plug in, and there's stuff built into the board to help you address that. And to my understanding, the competing board has some similar stuff in the same line.
Now,
So-
will those work in line and replace the CoCo DIN inputs, and they're read like a normal CoCo controller, or do they have to be read separately by specialized software?
They have to be read separately.
Okay.
Okay, and because they are going through this, in this case, the PS sound generator chip, and you're communicating through it through a port that's built on that
Okay.
Yamaha 2149F in this case. Okay, which is a compatible to the AY3 8910s. Okay, which is a very popular chip, and both the chips are similar. This is a little bit more powerful, okay, than the one we're planning to put on the games. But I don't think it's significant in the games. And so I know that John, I've seen that he's dropped off here. I had to step out just a moment. Is planning to talk about what he's doing at the fest. And I'm going to talk about some of the other solutions, some other things in my talk at the fest. Preparing, I'm actually putting together Bomb Squad cartridges.
Great.
Yeah.
Hey, I have a question for you about Bomb Squad, and so last year, so there was basically a few new products at CoCoFEST, Bomb Squad being one of the big ones, and then obviously like Farfall, and I think John Linville had 4 ROM cartridges, and then we also had Lee Patterson with Bouncy Ball. So I'm starting to think now, maybe you can, and without divulging, financial situations, but like, how well did Bomb Squad do at the fest and in general with sales? Like, do you know how many units you sold, and was it did it meet your expectations and satisfaction?
Yes, and I say hi to Hugo.
Hugo, bonjour, Hugo.
And
Hello, everyone.
yeah, I'm impressed.
Are
what
you
I've been
hearing
seeing.
me?
Yeah, we're hearing you, Hugo.
Oh, cool. Okay, you can continue. Thank you.
Well,
Bye.
why? Thank you. We appreciate that.
And I'm impressed by what I've seen him doing, and so welcome. The other thing that we're talking about is I actually have, one of the cases and stuff that Linville sells.
The injection molded case.
Yeah. This is actually the easier solution, okay, for people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's much easier. It'd be easier for me to just put them in here. But I can't do the unique things with this that I can do with doing my own.
Mm-hmm.
And so I actually made sure I had the case and their sample proto board and stuff. So I would make all my stuff on the sound chip boards and stuff compatible on the project. So yes, we're in some communication, and I think John has some information he's going to talk about at the fest. So I'll let him do those announcements.
Sure. But as far as like the number of units you sold, yeah,
Okay.
Was it a good number for you?
I made a batch of 20.
Okay.
Okay, for the fest. I didn't quite sell 20 at the fest, but shortly thereafter, I had the 20 sold.
Okay. And that was your target, and you were happy with that and everything else as far as
That was my target for the fest. My target is to have 15 at the fest this year
Okay.
for availability, and that's simply because I think I'm running out of boards I had in stock, and it's been a little tight right now, and it'll change a little bit later in the year. But if you know how insurance is, all your deductibles and everything comes at the first of the year.
Sure. So one of the things I do like about what you have done and what John Linville has done is putting something on a cartridge. And there are pros and cons to putting it on the cartridge. Obviously, the production is more challenging. The cost is more challenging to you. The cost to the consumer is higher, but it's tangible. It is completely retro. It's kind of cool. And then we have like what Nick has been doing, which is basically selling it on basically a disc image that he puts on a CD-ROM. What are your thoughts on, different ways to distribute this to maybe get, more sales? Are you open to kind of multiple solutions like physical and virtual and things like that? Or would you just prefer to keep it all cartridge based?
The Bomb Squad is, so far I've kept it all cartridge based. Okay. And it was just basically, I didn't want to fragment this and everything. I have done stuff on disc. I have actually cases and stuff. I'm going to be packaging some of my older games in a little bit nicer packaging this time than what I've had in the past. And so I'm open to doing both ways. It's going to be per project basis.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so there's reasons to do this, and not. The cool thing about the multiple chips is the Cyclone CoCo, the Zitzer's PSGG, the other board, is those three all use a compatible chip.
Okay.
And
it's a broader market for software.
So it's a broader market. I mean, you're going to have to do some minor things, like you may have to select which one they are, because addressing or something like that's going to change a little bit. And still, it's going to make it easier to support the maximum amount possible. So there's some stuff that I'm probably still going to do that'll load as a disc game. And there'll be some stuff that I will do exclusive for cartridge.
Do you feel that
it's going to do that?
Do you feel that the choice of cartridge versus virtual would influence or discourage sales, or perhaps invite copying and less compensation for yourself? Or is there any motivation, or is it just this is how I want to do it and I'm doing it because that's what I want to do?
Well, there's some differences between the games when you write it from the cartridge and from the disc. So you have to have different versions in general.
Okay.
You can do it so it's the same, but I like, if I write something from this basic, to exit real nice and clean back in basic, no reset or anything needed. And if I can't do that, I consider it a failure of coding. Because I want to put everything back in place after it's done. I run off disk, somebody can, just exit my game and start something else. No reset required.
Okay.
And I consider that common courtesy to the purchaser. That it should do that, if all possible. I'm not saying anybody's done anything wrong if they haven't done that. But
right, and that's your preference.
My preference is to do that, and I could see maybe something loaded, a lot bigger than the games I've done, and you might be using every resource and to put everything back to where they can use it might be not real convenient to do. Make sure you have everything. So, but first choice if possible, leave that way you found it.
Yeah, well, that's, again, I think anybody who's developing for a 30-year-old system has some old school sensibilities about, like you say, common courtesy and everything else, and things that the younger generation is not quite so hip to.
And John, do you have a reason that you've picked doing certain games on cartridge versus doing certain games on disc, or is it just a personal preference that game, or do you have specific reasoning for doing? Well, like Gems 2 is disc-based and Bomb Squad was cartridge-based. Was there a specific reason for that?
Well, part of the reason was people were buying the disc-based stuff. They were
Okay.
being just looked over. It's like the year I released that, okay, Neil, the CoCo broadcast, was the only one who bought one
Wow.
at the fest. And so I think that was kind of our low spot, you know, on the things, but because I was seriously considering, you know, not developing anymore. I mean, I can develop for other things. I can code to other devices. I got iPads, I've got Androids, I've got, you know, Mac Mini. You know, I can develop for something else. If people's not interested in what I do. Do I prefer to do it for the CoCo? Yeah, I've done this. You know, it's like I'm developing something for friends, you know.
Yeah.
And most of the people who buy, I know, or if I don't know when they buy, I end up knowing them. Okay? And so I was encouraged to do it on a cartridge. I did do a cartridge for the 4K contest. And so I went ahead and I did a Bomb Squad in the cartridge. And I think it was kind of really nice because I could do some unique things, you know.
Like your two-colored case and stuff. Like you made it a unique collectible.
Yeah, right. And so that made it really kind of unique to be able to do that. And it was a very retro experience because even though this is a CoCo 3 game, I can remember Steve York talking about, you know, a vast majority of CoCo owners across the board never had a disk drive system. So a lot of them were, you know, this is how they experienced the CoCo as a cartridge. And so to them, that's what brings back the memories. And if you did have, usually it was something for most of us, you know, some of them were blessed and didn't have to wait, but, you know, I started out developing software for cassette system. And finally got a hard, you know, drive. And so it is a really kind of a big, you know, thing to remember. Hey, this is a game cartridge, you know, plug it in. And so.
Because I think that's an interesting point because, I mean, I did, at least from my perspective, and I haven't been to Fest in over a decade before this last one, and I noticed that the cartridges seem to be outselling discs. Like there was offerings on disc like Plateau of the Past and a few others, but between John Linville's cartridges and your cartridges, I think the cartridges are outselling the discs, like you said, because of the collectability of it, I guess, or just, you know, the fact that this is kind of quirky and new for the CoCo market recently. I'm not sure what the exact reasoning was. I mean, Nick's would be the one exception that has sold very well not being in that format.
Well, and I think the difference is with Nick is he had a very long time period of promotion. Okay. A lot of people got on it and helped promote it. Okay. And that's helped Nick on that. Plus, I think the market has turned around a little bit because I noticed an uptick of the older software that I had that was on disc. I sold. Now they had cartridges. Oh, you have a cartridge. Oh, you have this. Oh, what is it? And now they're noticing. Okay, whereas on the disc system, you kind of just got passed by. At least there was that low point, you know, and I think that has changed a turnaround. And I hope that hopefully that increases. And I think it's going to seeing people like Hugo and Paul Thayer and working on game stuff. The can't remember the name of the gentleman from Australia who does the port from the code. He contacted me and
Mark
talked about
McDougall or whatever his name
yeah,
is?
Mark
yes,
McDougall,
Mark
yeah.
McDougall, yes. And you know, so I think there's an uptick of interest, not only in what us who's been doing it for a time, okay, but other people getting interested in doing it. And so I think that's great because as more people doing that, they see it, more people look out, oh, that's cool. Hey, you know, I used to do that, enjoy that. And so I think it's generating a lot of interest across the board. And you know, CoCo podcast. And what Steve has done, has done so much to promote the community because people are now seeing things and hearing about it, on a regular basis. And we had some people who did some great promotion stuff in the past, and Alan Huffman's been one of those. But Alan Huffman kind of got away from it. Now he's getting back into it. Now he has all these blogs suddenly as he's playing around back what he had and doing things. And, it's very interesting to see what he's doing. And, the way the CoCo is now, taking on, a second life, so to speak. And,
CoCo's got its groove back.
Yeah, and instead of, people, talking perpetually about the CoCo 4, which to me, I think it happened, okay, already with the TC9, it was the MM1, those were the successors, the CoCo 3. And at the time, that was really the movie to happen, okay? It did, but, they were a lot more expensive. I never got a TC9. I wanted one desperately.
There were some compatibility issues, like you were basically dealing with a new system in most cases, and yeah. And so, I mean, I totally agree with you. I think what Steve's done and the blogs that have been happening and the CoCo broadcast has been really helping get people back into the community. Like I've been on the periphery watching the CoCo lists and the Facebook groups, even when I kind of got inactive, but there's been so much new people coming in and asking questions that I'm actually able to answer and help. It got me back into it, and I'm actually starting to actively work on projects again too, a little bit, which I haven't done in a decade and a half. So I think you're right, it is expanding, and I think a lot of the people like Steve and stuff have helped promote and get the word out, and the group's expanding and new people are coming in, even some new young people. I think it's really helped. So thanks, Steve, and everybody.
Yeah, well, thank you.
The other thing going on is that, we had video recording stuff that happened, okay? Because a lot of my seminars in the CoCoFEST, people recorded them, okay? And,
But they weren't distributable back then, because, I mean, I know Alan and others recorded them, but unless you contacted them personally, you never saw it again.
Right, and unless you made it to the next fest, and Alan did make a few available to the fest and things like that. But now we could distribute those, greatly. Even if you didn't want to do it all, you could do a DVD, you could do that. The cost and the ability to be able to do that just drastically has changed. And so the technology has made it so much easier to do these things. And you asked about, piracy. This is my mixed feeling about this and some of the others. Is, okay, well, let's see. It's got Orchestra 90 on board. It's got a ton of programmed RAM space. You stick all my cartridges in there and have the Orchestra 90 on. And, of course, any of this any time in the past could have been, EEPROM burners has been around. And so you can always have that piracy. And, it's not something as a developer I'd like. It's going to happen. And hopefully it's going to happen less now because people know, hey, if they don't make something on this,
Yeah. I not that I'm proud of this, but yeah, I was guilty of piracy when I was a kid, because you're a kid, you got to do what you got to do to get the games you want to play. That was our drug. As an adult, I understand commerce and compensation for efforts and things like that. And as a supporter of this, I mean, and I'm probably not the typical person, but I don't think I'm alone. With both you and John Linville, for two reasons: because I'm a collector, and also because I want to support your efforts. I purchased 2 copies of your game because I've got one that's sealed and still shrunk wrapped, and then I also bought your prototype cartridge, so I've got one that's out of the box that I can play. And I did the same thing with Farfall, so I still have the sealed Farfall. And I even, when John was still, because I remember we were talking to John on Skype, and during the Skype call he's like boxing and labeling and he's doing all the production costs. I'm like, dude, I don't need the box, just send me the cartridge because I want to review your game. So I've got copies of both. And so I fully understand and do what I can to support the community, not only in promotion, but even in just, contributing to the people who are developing these products. I'm probably a smaller percentage, but I hope I'm not the only, CoCo fan who feels that way and also does what they can to support you and John Linville and everybody else,
And I know Neil was that way, and that's when I kind of first really kind of met Neil. He was, well, I want to make sure I support you guys,
Mm-hmm.
And I've done that in the past, I've had a fest I've done okay at, and I turn around some of what I've spent. I spent on other products to help other people, and some of that products I never actually really used, but it was bought to support the community.
I still haven't unwrapped the MCX 128 printed case I bought from you last year. So I bought it, and that product's obsolete now too.
And to be honest, I think the videos that you've done, and I think that the audio podcasts that John Linville and Neil and Mike have been doing, I think are helping, because you're putting now live people either by voice or by face and voice, but that are behind these products. It's now a person you're dealing with. It's not just some guy holed up in his mom's basement or something that occasionally produces a product that you download, right? Like, it was very impersonal. And I think because it's much more personal now, and we're seeing the people, we're seeing the efforts that they're putting in, we're getting updates from them, and we now know it literally takes you months to come up with these products, that I think that is inclined more people to go, you know what, I've seen what kind of effort they put into this live for the last 6 months, I'm going to buy it, rather than just, that looks like a neat game, I think I'll copy it off my friend.
Yeah.
I think that's helped a lot.
It was like the Pop-Tart Pilot. As a developer, I'm not a big game player, so I haven't played probably through the first level yet, okay? But when it's available, I ordered it. I ordered it with the disc, not too much I wanted the disc, because that was the way I could give him more, okay? And I was also one who had contacted him when he was kind of away from the community there for a few months. And, emailed him personally, encouraged him to continue, working with the CoCo stuff. Take the break if you need to take the break, but hey,
Yeah. Let me address some of the people who have been chatting with us here now too. Let me just start scrolling backwards. So, okay, thanks. All is well. Okay, James Ross is here. Hey, James. Cartridges are cool for collecting. I say it's fine if a developer is inclined to release only on cartridge. Jason Rothbergs is here. He'd say I'd rather see releases on cartridges as well. So that's 2 votes for cartridges. Hugo DeFort, bonjour. I was lucky that about 50% of my CoCo games were bought at Radio Shack from other people, used games. Oh, he says, okay. It was much worse on platforms like the Commodore 64, where 100% of the software was pirated. Hugo says, game blogs are definitely a catalyst for other game developers. And then FiceGap is saying, off-topic question for John, is that a FlashForge Creator Pro in the background?
It is actually a clone of the FlashForge Creator Pro.
Okay.
And by Micro Center. And the rumor is that the clone is actually made by FlashForge for Micro Center, but I haven't been able to confirm that. But it uses the same software and stuff. And actually, I was over at Micro Center yesterday picking up plastic to finish off some stuff for the fest. And they had that printer marked down another $200 for it. And surprisingly, they had one of the FlashForge shedding on their cells. So that tends to verify maybe that's the case, because if they were making them a clone, and then now they're selling it their brand, it'd make it reasonable that they wouldn't have both there in the same store. So it's a clone of it. And I actually have 2. I have the updated version of that too. It's not in this room. And
FiceCap is saying, no wonder your cases come out so nice. Great printer.
Yeah. Okay.
FiceCap or FiceCap. You told us your name before. I forgot. Tell us your name again, Mr. FiceCap. My memory's not that good as I age. Well, so let me go ahead and segue over just for a minute, and because I do want to talk about a very shameful plug as well for something at CoCoFEST, and it's not even me that I want to plug. Paul Fiscarelli, hey Paul, that's FiceCap. So I do want to talk about Nick's Popstar Pilot for a minute, which you did talk about. This was the original package, and I think another reason why you say it did well was he had a long time to promote it, which is very true. It was a long time in the coming, but I also think what Nick did is probably in some ways similar to putting it on a cartridge, because it is physical, it is tangible, and so it is still, something collectible in a sense, where if you just said, send me a PayPal and I'll email you a link to a disk image file or a binary file, and it's a complete virtual transaction, which by the way is how all modern gaming is done. But in the retro world, this is not a bad compromise to still have the virtual copy on a tangible collectible thing. So that might also contribute to the success of Popstar Pilot as well. And I think he said he did somewhere around 70 units, Curtis? Was that the rough numbers he said in that ballpark?
Yeah, somewhere around 60 to 70, somewhere, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure nobody goes to CoCoFEST to get rich.
Hasn't worked for me yet.
Yeah, the cost of airfare and hotel, you would have to sell a whole lot of whatever just to break even. What were you holding up there, John?
Oh, I'm just saying I've got cases for those.
Yeah. Well, and so this is the new version. This is the version, and by the way, this insert has changed to a color insert. So, but this is the version I'm going to have available. So I will be having Popstar Pilot available at CoCoFEST for Nick Marentes. We just made that official announcement. It was announced on the CoCo Crew podcast that just aired this week. I just released a video announcing this, but basically a very similar package, but a slight variation to the package will be available. So I'll have some physical copies of Popstar Pilot as well, just so Nick Marentes can be represented this year. The game wasn't finished last year, so I thought it was going to be nice for Nick to have a presence at CoCoFEST. And so part of my reason in asking those questions too is I'm just wondering how many people are going to be interested in getting a copy of Nick's game, since it's already sold as many as it has. I'm just trying to get a feel too for how many should we have produced and mailed there. But the great news is about doing the DVD solution is that this can all be done online. You can upload your artwork, you can upload a copy of the CD or DVD, and they'll produce it all for you and ship it one at a time on demand, and you don't have to do anything but send them the electronic files and they'll produce it for you. It's not the same as a cartridge. There is no replacement for that, but I think it's a suitable compromise to a cartridge for certain situations.
Yes, I agree. It is, and the fact that we have cartridges is not going to make the disc games go away, and I don't expect it to. And because it does take that extra level of work to do the cartridge.
Yes.
Okay. And so this is actually the prototype of the CoCoFlash case. And,
is that Jim Brain's Retro Innovation card there?
Yeah, that's Jim Brain's
okay.
With the flash and stuff. It's not a promise, but I'm actually thinking of doing a case, at least a few, for the CoCoFEST in two colors.
Okay.
On plastic. Depends on the amount of time and how.
Jim says, "Yay, me!"
Yeah, he gave me permission to go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
And so it's close, and this is just off by minor things, and I've corrected this in my files, and it's got the print.
Right.
But, these things I got it for two reasons. I had somebody requesting that I do a case for it, and the fact I'm planning to do bank switching in a game real soon here, and this allows me to do it in a flight system rather than have to program defaults all the time. And so it just gives me a development tool as well as something I can design cases for. And I don't know what Jim has been talking, and there's some other stuff going. I don't know how much is public, so I will not talk about it. But he looks like he has some very cool things in the work coming, and so Jim, as well as Ed, is one of those who is contributing a lot to that. And not to leave out Mark Marlette
of course not.
and everybody else who's doing things. Okay, and so they do a fantastic job. I play a little bit of hardware, but these guys make me look like the right beginner. And so, but that's okay. And I think we're going to see a lot of more cool things. People are getting excited. This is the big thing. Interest has dropped down. Just a couple years ago, it was like an all-time, low for attendance on the CoCoFEST. And then boom, it started to turn around. And now look what we have, even though it's not the attendance I'd like to see at it, and this year maybe with the other TRX-80 people joining us, but we have a lot more people active involved in the group now than we've had in a long time.
I'm going to go ahead and pull up the Glenside website, and let's see what the current attendance is looking like here. So if we go to attending right now, the list is getting pretty big. So we have Rick Adams, we have Bill Assel, Richard Bear, Neil Blanchard. Is Neil Blanchard a party of 3? So that would make 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15,
I should
16,
warn you, it's
17,
still a bit
18,
behind because I submitted
20,
mine
21,
literally
22,
a few days
23,
ago and it's
24,
not there yet. So
9,
they're a bit
30,
behind on the
31,
list.
32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42. So there's roughly 42, 43 people here on the list right now that are I'm assuming are confirmed as attending, and as Curtis says, this is behind. Now I think last year they said there was about 80 people there, and that was a good year. And so we're already looking about half that number is already kind of booked, so to speak, and we're still 3 weeks away. We're 20 days away.
I don't know if Alan Huffman's on that list. He's
booked his hotel.
He's not on the list, but ironically, though, he is listed under the events somewhere down here. So Sunday's events we have somewhere in here at the Sunday auction. Yeah, but he's in here. He's in here somewhere. I saw him.
Optimizing Basic, I think.
Yeah, Optimizing Basic was one of the presentations. So he's under the events. He's definitely should be under vendors, right? So I think that's kind of where I saw him. So under vendors, again, we have Carl.
He has been invited to share space with me on one of my talks too.
Yeah, Boise, Brendan Donahue, Bruce Moore. That's bringing it up now. Frank Patel. So Frank is exhibiting. He's part of the list, right? So yeah, we have Mark Marlette, Hawksoft, J Systems. That's Ben Anding, Jim O'Keefe. So now we're already up to about 50 people. John and Melanie Mark Mobley, John Linville. Okay, so that might be Neil Blanchard Party of 3 that John Linville is part of. Yeah, so we're looking at, there's Jim. So yeah, we're definitely looking at, there's John Strong, here's Alan Huffman here, right, and Wally. So yeah, we're looking at easily 50 people that we know already of, and I'm sure there's a lot of people in the Chicago area that will probably be there.
And I pay for a ticket for my wife whether she decides to come over. She does sometimes, and hopefully she will this year. And so that's another one. So yeah, I think it looks good. The other thing that's great about these talks I want to talk to is it really helps us as the developers, okay? Because you get to doing all this long time and you get to thinking, this is a lot of work. Why do I want to work on this? But, people are excited about your project as well as you, and it helps keep you going and do some of these projects. And, we have the Dr. CoCo, which, is really very, very close to being finished. If I wasn't doing the hardware sound, I could have had it finished for the fest this year.
So So where do we stand with Dr. CoCo then? Will Dr. CoCo make an appearance, or are you going to hold off until you have the full product that you want?
It's not going to be for sale. I know that.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't decided any further than that. You know.
Okay.
I don't know if I. Yeah, just haven't given it too much thought. I'm trying to get everything else ready.
Sure.
And doing some of the sound researching, and there's a lot of research to be done because these sound chips can do a lot. And I thought there'd be a lot more out on the web on some of the cool stuff that you could do as sound effects and so on. And I'm not finding much of that. You know,
I think it's interesting that you're literally still pioneering things for this 30-plus-year-old system. You're still researching new things to do with this old machine, on a very tangible physical level here. Trying to figure out now how to make the 35-year-old sound chip work on the 35-year-old computer, and all that pioneering effort still taking place.
We had some of that going on. Give you some background on some of this stuff. Is like my game supports the Orchestra 90 part. Well, the reason for that is very simple. About the time that I was getting into games, the Orchestra 90 price dropped down drastically. They originally came out with $90 to $100 range.
Mm-hmm.
Curtis might know more, a little bit better at the actual price range. But they came down where we could buy them about $15 a piece. And I never seen the sound speech cartridge get that low. Okay? The Orchestra 90 are lower, okay? Because I know we bought somewhere, a bunch of them. We were selling at the Fest for about $10 or $15. That means we were making a profit at $10 or $15 on our Orchestra 90 card for us to be able to sell it at the Fest along with our games. And when I say me, I know Curtis and met Charles, or Charlie, my brother, and Charles and myself were the main part of Strongware, and I had some other people in the local groups who just loved it. They came and joined and volunteered for nothing to help me out. They just loved to be associated, being with it. One of those was Don Adams, who was a great big help. But so we did have a group, okay, of people who worked together, so now you take, a much more expensive card, could do a little bit more, but was noted to be finicky on being programming, okay, compared to a interface that I could sell them for $15 and make a profit on, because I had it. What do you support? And the Orchestra 90 was the easy choice. Plus, it gave you a feature that nothing else did. You got stereo sound. And you can pull the cool trick of doing it without actually programming it to go into the CoCo and come out the CoCo speakers. You can make it automatically. They didn't have to select where they had Orchestra 90 or not. It just wrote out those values, whether it existed or not. And if you had it, you had your stereo sound. If you didn't, you had no setup was required by the users to get the stereo sound.
Sure.
And so that made it a really nice choice. Cost was there. Availability was there. Ease of use for the end person. Plus stereo. So it made it a good choice for the time.
No doubt. And even now, I would imagine if you wanted to continue to have that in your cartridge, even with your synthesizer, the cost of the two chips probably would not increase that much either, right?
The real estate starts to take a little bit more.
Okay.
The interesting thing, and I've got to play with it yet, but, the Cyclone CoCo, which is the FPGA from Roger Taylor, it supports both. Okay.
It supports the sound synthesizer and the Orchestra 90.
Yes. Okay. And Now, I haven't tested it, but looking at the sample code, you might even be able to mix the two at the same time.
That would be neat because you have that 8-bit DAC where you could actually get halfway decent samples. So you could have PCM running in unison with synthesis. And that now we're starting to get into 16-bit quality multimedia.
Yeah, so I've just started programming the sound chip a little bit on the Cyclone and seeing how it works a little bit and stuff. So I'm still new to that. So it's part of the learning process. And we'll get it down. And, and there's stuff we're going to be able to share. But I did notice that one on the Cyclone, that one tone channel did go to one ear and the other tone, 0 went to one ear, 1 went to another ear, and I think 2 was mixed between both. Okay, on some tests. So he did an interesting choice, the way he did map those into a system. It makes it neat. So there's a lot of possibilities going on here. I feel like I'm monopolizing your talk.
No, you are the talk right now, so that's fine because I had nothing to talk about. You are providing great content for us right now.
Otherwise, we just had to make stuff up.
Yeah. It would be me and Curtis.
May I ask a question?
Yeah, who said that?
Kip.
Kip.
Earlier you mentioned that you were going to go to a bank switching scheme, a mini MMU type thing. How big are you planning on taking the cartridges eventually, or do you have any idea as far as program content?
Well, I'm not sure. And welcome to Rick. The 28-pin chips, which seems to be the first one to be done. I don't think it was going to be that hard to go to, a larger size. It just depends on whether I have a game that needs that much capacity. Okay?
Right.
And I am looking at one game that I may be doing that might require, significantly more capacity. I know the Handy, which is my Fix-It Felix style game, is going to needs more than 16K. The way I'm writing, especially with the sound. And so that will use bank switching, but 32 might be enough for it. But it depends on a lot of things what you get to do, and just how much sprites you have. Whether you do a compiled sprite or you do a standard type sprite with the CoCo. Compiled sprites takes a huge amount of more space up, but they're kind of cool in the way that they work, and fast. Basically the fastest you can get with the CoCo. And so it's a lot of things that's open yet, but the design, 64 and 128. Basically, we're using the design that was in the, published, that they used years ago on the bank switching cartridges. And so that's kind of there. How far we can go, it depends on how much we need.
Yeah. One more question I was curious about. I remember when I was a kid and playing all the arcade games, it had a built-in high score. Are y'all going to have RAM in the games to have an ongoing high score? I thought it'd be kind of nostalgic.
Well, actually, that's on my goal list eventually. Okay.
Yeah, so we do have disc games that do that already, but yeah, we don't have any cartridge games that do that.
Well, not RAM, but double EEPROM.
But,
some type of NVRAM.
Yeah,
I've
or flash of some sort.
I've done some research, okay, and I haven't found the chip that I want to do yet with it, and the things that are being done and being prepared needed to be done first before this is being done. And it might be a case, at least in my case, and I don't know about John Linville's, I've actually bought some prototype stuff to work with, so I can maybe do some simple, complex logic device work to map some things in if need be. And I'm crazy enough to think if I can, teach myself 6809 assembly language years ago, I can probably do this stuff.
Jim Brain has been chiming in here saying that you've got 256 banks of 16K, you've got 4 megabytes of storage, and if you need to store things, just dedicate a bank for high scores and into a bank of the flash. So
well, yes,
if
you're doing something on Jim's Brain's card, okay, or stuff or zipsters with the flash memory, yes, you could definitely do something like that. Okay. I think, I was thinking since it was directed to me as being on a dedicated game cartridge, rather than, a flash card. So there's a lot of options to do.
Is the production cost higher to use flash versus like an EEPROM?
For me, it would be, Jim and Zipster would be the ones that actually have that stuff because, they know what they're doing once they get in that realm. Me, I can use cheap parts and stuff to do this, and I'm sure that they could cost optimize it and do it a lot cheaper than I could.
Mm-hmm.
They've got that skill level, definitely above me, and so it's a lot of options that's there, and it's great that we have those.
Yeah, Jim's saying that 512K carts are dirt cheap. I don't know what dirt cheap means, but that's fine. I'm sure that it would be nice if he actually joined the call and contribute this information verbally, Jim. Hello, Rick Adams. Thanks for joining us, Rick.
Hello.
Yeah, Rick, can you
hear me?
See the multicolored game cartridge?
No. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you fine, Rick.
Oh, okay. No, I haven't seen it.
He's holding it up now. If you want to click on the camera click on the live chat camera and make it full screen.
Yep. Oh, okay. Wow. I see it.
Okay.
It is a nice 2-color design.
And then if you don't want to be crazy like me, you want to go with standard solution, then these are available.
It looks just like downtown.
You might be able to finally get your bomb squad out on the cartridge there, Rick. Like your original plan.
Bomb threat.
No,
or bomb threat.
Yeah, but we have dueling.
Yeah, too many bomb games here today.
Yeah, luckily that the NSA and CIA and everybody, they don't listen in on anything, so we don't have to worry about throwing out the B word.
Geez, I shouldn't have said this because I have to cross the border in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. I'm sure there's somebody going, "Hey, wait a minute."
Well, for every bomb threat, there's a bomb squad to deal with it. So.
Well, if you want to save yourself, you can say it's a virtual bomb squad.
Yes, virtual bomb squad.
I'd probably still get stripped as soon as I cross the border.
At least you're the good guy.
Well, that's really great. Yeah, that's really great, but, I'm sure they'll be quite accommodating when they let me out in 2 weeks. Oh, sorry about that. Our mistake.
Well, if I don't make it to the fest and I get held up at customs at the border, it's probably this call that did it because I mentioned bombs several times.
Yes.
Right. That will not be a word I'll be uttering.
Well, take your computer with you so you can still interact with us.
I'll probably be locked in a Faraday cage.
But I think there's more options available for the people today than what there's ever been on doing things with a color computer. To be able to do it yourself. I'm actually considering, this isn't a sample of it, but I actually do my own printed mugs. So
nice.
If I have time, I'll be doing Bomb Squad mug.
I have the mouse pad and the poster from last year still. I have those treasured relics. Well, it's exciting to know there's so much stuff going on in the color computer community, and you know, I'm really hoping that these, you know, things like the CoCo Crew podcast and now these little weekly calls that we're doing now, I hope this gets more people interested in the CoCo, gets more people out to CoCoFEST, gets more people interested in generating hardware and software projects, and then for people like me who are just consumers, gets us interested in, you know, investing in these projects. I'm definitely on board for supporting everything, you know, that's happening. We were talking earlier, and Rick just joined us, you know, about making things on a cartridge versus making them on a virtual disk image and stuff, and are we concerned about piracy or, you know, just the software being copied and not having the, you know, as much royalties benefit the original authors. I'm hoping that we've learned from history. I'm hoping that we've learned now. I mean, I have so much Catholic guilt of all the free software I got as a teenager that I go out of my way to spend as much money as I can now. And I know nothing I spend on eBay is helping anybody, but at CoCoFest, I'm trying to buy everything. I'm trying to do everything I can to support everybody. I hope I'm not alone in realizing that if we continue to do what we did back then, nobody's going to make anything for this computer. The fact that there is homebrew and new brew and there are projects happening, hopefully we're all adults now too. Hopefully we realize that, come on, throw a couple bucks at this community so it can exist. Hopefully I'm not alone, and hopefully everybody agrees with me there, right?
Well, yeah, I just like to call it Cocoa Blue.
And I think that's where having these types of talks, and like I said before, of having live blogs and actually having faces that you match to who the author is, I think personalizes the point where I think people will spend the money more. I know it worked on me this last one. I bought more stuff than I normally would buy.
One of the things that came up in the Donkey King interview with Chris Latham the other day was somebody asked the question, what do you think about if, you know, a company like Tom Mix or something would let people just mail in a $5 or $10 payment as kind of a, you know, guilt fee to help ease their conscience? And even now, somebody even put a comment on that video saying, listen, if Chris was to open up a PayPal, I would send him $5 or $10 right now just to cover my guilt from back then. I'd rather pay Chris now since there's no Tom Mix. What do you guys think about opening up like your own little website with a PayPal link if somebody wants to contribute to Temple of Rom or to, you know, Jeweled and all these other games that you've made in the past, John Strong and Rick Adams? I know nobody's got their hand out. Nobody's doing this to get rich. Nobody's doing this for money. But are you guys open if somebody wanted to voluntarily make a gratuity towards you? Would you? I think it's a dumb question, a rhetorical question to say, would you accept free money?
No, I refuse.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, right.
Well, go ahead.
That's the way that things are going these days. They have these Patreons,
Kickstarter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But that's for upcoming projects. That's not usually to pay for stuff in the past that you pirated, so it's a little bit different, I guess.
Right. And I thought, you know, do I want to have that sort of thing for like for bomb threat? You know, because here I am, I'm trying to do this game. It's really weird, unusual circumstances on this. So, you know, would I want to do that? I'm not really a money guy. I mean, you know, I like money. I like money a lot, but, you know, I'm not really doing this for the money.
Is it the women?
It's the groupies, yes.
Silly boy, it's for the fun.
It's nice to get some money because it helps pay for the expenses, you know.
Sure.
And when it pays for some of those expenses, my wife says, great. I like to go to Chicago and be in a hotel for 4 days and be away from the house. And this is especially a little bit different for me because I work out of the home all the time. Okay, I work for a consulting company. And so we'll get out on the weekend, just go someplace we really don't need to go, just to get away out of the house for a while. And because we've been there all week. You haven't had a chance to go out and get to work. If you hadn't had to go get groceries, you've been there all week. You look at the same walls. It's cabin fever time.
Yeah.
You're going stir crazy.
I think it's a great idea if you guys had just a page. I know Rick Adams has a website, but if Rick, if you start your blog now for any future projects, and again, I know you're not asking for a handout, but if you wanted to just create a generic PayPal link, or if anybody wanted to make a donation to support past and current projects, feel free to send a donation of your choice. It costs you no money to put a PayPal link on a page, and if people are generous, then they might just extend that generosity to you.
Right.
Well,
I run a one of my other bizarre hobbies is I run an internet radio station that plays Japanese pop music 24/7. And I had a lot of people in that said, hey, we want to donate money to you. And I'm like, I'm not in it for the money. And they said, no, we want to donate money. And I said, no, I'm doing this for fun. They said, but just shut up and give us a link where we can give you money. Like,
Sure.
Okay, I will.
Right.
And so there is one. And, somebody sends me $20 every once in a great while. For a while they were like, yeah, we want to send money. It was like a couple $100 they had come in right away. It all faded away, and so that's all good. So, but my radio station is a lot of radio stations have notices all over them saying, "Please donate money that we may continue providing this service to you." I'm out of my way not to beg. But it's like, I have a page that says, donations. You click on that, and it gets you like a picture of a bunny with the pancakes on its head. And it says, if you want to give me money, that'd be great. I like the money.
Sure.
If you don't want to give me money, I'm fine. So, don't feel like you have to.
Right.
It's sort of, extremely low key.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I still get $20 every once in a while.
Well, I do want to make a mention of somebody who does have that going on, and that's Roger Taylor with his project with his Cyclone CoCo. And so I encourage people who want to support somebody in an ongoing project to do that.
Yeah, definitely.
Now that kind of cut out. Can you tell me that again?
Okay, Roger Taylor, who's doing he's one of the two people who's done the Fill Programmer Gate Array version of the CoCo. And there's no official name for his yet, but it's been called the Cyclone CoCo because it's based on that chipset. And he does have a donation where you can donate PayPal to him on the project.
Okay.
Okay, and to help cover some of his costs.
Yeah.
Hey, Jim.
Hey.
I think we finally got Jim Brain on the call.
Welcome.
So he can chime in on all the benefits of flash storage and other modern inventions of the 21st century. Running water, electricity, vaccinations.
That's right. Ask away.
Well, welcome, Jim.
How's the MPI coming?
I've got a board out for manufacture, another prototype. The IDE cable signal degradation has been a real bother over the past testing period, so I'm trying to make sure it's got plenty of margin. I use 8010 cables, but I've had a couple of glitches. I'm just not, real happy, and so if my latest thing doesn't work, I'll probably look for a different kind of cable. The problem is all those signals go in all that length to get to the second board. That's the only real problem right now.
Yeah.
James Ross has a great idea. James Ross says we need to lobby some 1%er for a philanthropy donation.
Philanthropy?
Listen, English is my second language, okay? So philanthropy, is that philanthropy?
Or
Philanthropic.
I
Philanthropic.
thought you said fill in floppy. And we were talking about making a big floppy disk game or something.
A philanthropic.
Speaking of philanthropy, if I can say the word right, I would love to reach out to Bill Gates, Mr. Original Microsoft, and get some type of sanction to say, you know what, if you guys want to use Microsoft Basic and distribute it in a emulator, please do, and make CoCo emulation something that we can, do in a way where we can maybe mainstream it. That would be kind of cool.
Yeah, that would be
You'd have to
cool.
get permission from Tandy too, though, wouldn't you? Because it's a cross-license deal. Mind you, they might not be around much longer. But
Microsoft and Tandy, yeah.
Right. It would be great to have somebody sign off on that and just saying, yeah, by all means. There's got to be a statute of limitation at some point anyways, but it'd be great to have the blessings and support of a computer giant to say, yeah, you know what?
Well, there used to be, okay, a term limit on copyrights. That has been changed. And a big part, the Disney.
Over and over.
Yes. And
that's what the author's death date plus 50 years or something stupid.
75, I thought it was.
Yeah, maybe it's 75 now. Like, it's an incredibly long period of time. It's useless for a computer of anything.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be kind of cool. I mean, I was starting to raise the question, and I know I'm a pie in the sky guy, but as much as it's great that you guys are making these games, and I appreciate it, but I think your market is a somewhat, it's extremely finite market, and I would love to find a way for your market to be a broader market where your time and energy could then, I would love to have this universal, seamless CoCo thing where anybody can run CoCo software anywhere on a smartphone, on a whatever. And yes, it can be done, but it's you need to be somewhat technical to know how to do it. I'd love to have some type of CoCo abstraction layer where just drop in the image and run the software on insert device here, and you now have a global audience. I think that would be great. I know it's wishful thinking on my part, but I think technologically it's definitely possible. I just wish I knew how to do it.
That'd be a big project.
Yeah.
well, the thing is, if you're talking about games, and if you're talking about ROM games, it's much more feasible because, I use very little calls into ROM, okay? And those that I do use are not that hard to replace.
Okay.
And I mean, I use a character in from the keyboard, and some like I did in a sample for Rick. I called the ROM routine to set up the screen and stuff. But as Rick's seen, there's another set of code. You can't set that up yourself, and I have done that. And so, basically, if you write your own keyboard routines and stuff, and you have a CoCo emulator, that you could actually set it up to run instead of BASIC.
Okay.
And run your stuff instead of there. If you had something that would let you select that, and just start it if it's that. The negative part is that doesn't really run on a real CoCo. Okay. Being done that way.
If anybody could get on board to make this happen, I'm gonna reach out to Microsoft. I don't know who to reach out to, but think about it. Microsoft's making the Xbox. Microsoft owns the BASIC. Why don't we reach out to them and say, listen, this is a win-win. There's at least 20 people who will purchase a copy of this game to run on your platform because we know you need the sales. So let's make the Microsoft official Xbox CoCo emulator, and let's put all these games on the Xbox marketplace and let people buy them as downloadable, doohickeys and play them there. Hugo DeFort says Microsoft Basic source code will be in the public domain 70 years after Bill Gates reaches 95 years old, according to U.S. terms.
That sounds about right.
Just in time for CoCoFEST 187.
Jeez.
The last CoCoFEST 187.
Yes. Yeah, so Hugo is saying we definitely need to reach out to Bill Gates. I don't think we can wait for the copyright to evaporate at this point. In the year 2120.
Whenever I hear last CoCoFEST 27, it always makes me think of Final Fantasy 15.
Final Fantasy.
That wasn't very final, was it?
Oh, that's good.
The penultimate Final Fantasy 15. Yeah.
Yes.
So Jim, you were chiming in before.
Going to be my keynote for free.
Yeah. Jim, you were chiming in on Flash. You were basically saying just use Flash. And so now that we have you on the call verbally, do you want to chime in some more when we're talking about cartridges with NVRAM and bank switching and other things like that? Anything you want to share with maybe John Strong if he wanted to produce a cartridge to use Flash instead of an EEPROM and the costs and the complexities of doing that?
Well, I'd say that the cartridge is pretty easy. If folks want that, just a simple cartridge with Flash and a bank register, that's a pretty simplistic cartridge. Looks to me like I'm looking here. You can pick up pretty inexpensive, like 512K or 1 meg Flash ROMs. I'm trying to think here. Right here it's got. So I know I picked up a batch of them for about 36 cents a piece.
Oh so, my god!
Yeah, I mean, the stuff on eBay, and it's stuff that is. I don't know if it's the 80s era type stuff, but it's the 90s era type stuff. So it's
okay.
It's not, it's 5-volt logic. It's typical flash storage and whatnot. So anyway, I mean, I picked up. I think when I bought those, I bought 2,000 of them, so I got plenty sitting there. So, and that's my goal. My goal is every one of the cartridges that I put together, I'm going to slap a 512K RAM or ROM on it because it's dirt cheap. It's easy to do that. The bank register is simplistic if you follow the scheme that RoboCop followed. So that's easy to put on there. You got about another, you got probably another, so probably got another $2 or $3 for some glue logic. You got probably I think the cartridge, the CoCoFlash PCB was like $1 to manufacture the actual printed circuit board. But if somebody wanted to put a cartridge together and they said, hey, I need the hardware for it to be, $7 or something like that, or $5 or whatever.
Right.
I think that's doable as long as you don't get too carried away, right? You start putting, a bunch of stuff on it, and you could get yourself, kind of expensive. But you could probably put one of those Yamaha chips on it, or an Orchestra 90 capability on it, and probably still be, I'd say you probably under $15, maybe $18, for the hardware with some profit built in. Then it's just a matter of how much do you want to sell your game for, and can you afford to to bundle this hardware and the game together and make enough to make it worth your while to put them together. I wouldn't put them together by hand. I'd build like 100 of them at a time. They're dirt cheap to put together if you have it done where I don't solder mine up. Typically, the CoCoFlash is probably the only cartridge that I've soldered up by hand, and even at that I gave up on it after the first 15 or so, and I had 100 of them made up, so they should be here in a couple weeks. So they'll be here in time for CoCoFest.
It's amazing how much we can outsource in production now. Where my thought process is going as I'm hearing about all these projects that are being juggled in the air at once, you already have a little bit of cohesion and collaboration of John Strong and John Linville on audio hardware. You're working on flash storage, everything else. There's got to be some economy of scale and a benefit to kind of consolidating our efforts. I'm envisioning the universal cartridge where you guys all get together, come up with this insert product here cartridge that becomes a very turnkey thing, and anybody can release a universal ROM that has hardware, software, storage, and everything. And if we all kind of got our ducks in a row and standardize that, because I can see fragmentation and destandardization also starting to become these forks in the road. But if we all kind of work together on this holy grail cartridge, and all you got to do now is drop in your image, and then poof, you guys can be releasing products to market in no time.
It's true, and there's no problem with it. I think the key is having somebody come up and say, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm committing to making the game. I'm committing to put it in a cartridge, and this is what I want. I want a Yamaha sound chip. I want I want this much flash or this much storage, and I want the registers to be here, here, and here. And then, from my perspective, that's easy to do because for a lot of these, the cheapest way to make the cartridge is to use programmable logic. And so that's what I'm putting on all the cartridges now. So that means that I can make the cartridges and assemble them somewhere else. And then at the very end, you can say, I want the sound at FF70 and I want the flash at FF75 or 6 or whatever. And I say, okay, give me 2 seconds and boom, you're done. You're ready to go. If you do discrete logic, A, more expensive, and B, it's kind of hard-coded. So, but still, if folks decided on a set of capabilities that I could take a look at, or Zipster could take a look at, then we'd say, sure, we can build that. I think the key, though, is there's probably only enough market for somebody to create the design and have it assembled, because when I've been doing runs for the classic computer space, 100 units is realistically your lower bound for economies of scale. So below that, if you go to 50 or you go to 25 cartridges being assembled, you end up. So like I have a cartridge that I'm looking to build and try to bring to CoCoFEST, and 50 cartridges is $700 to assemble with the parts and everything, and 100 cartridges is $900. So for another $200, you get 50 more cartridges.
Sure.
So it's cheaper to do 100. And so unless there's enough people who can say, hey, we can justify Zipster making 100 of them and Jim making 100 of them, then I think just somebody ought to do it. And it doesn't matter to me who it is. I can design it and put the design in. I do all my stuff as open source, so anybody can build it they want. It's just a matter of who's going to follow through and build it. And I think for a lot of the classic machines, people don't have a lot of upfront cash. So they want to do things kind of onesie-twosie. Well, it's the most expensive way to do things.
Right. Which, understandable. Ed Snyder just joined the text chat. Hello, Ed.
There he is.
We should get you on Skype.
Just joined the chat.
Yeah, we need to get Ed on Skype.
But I think, from my perspective, I have, at least now, I have the capability of buying 100 of something and just sitting them on the shelf because I know eventually they'll sell.
And that's a nice luxury.
Yeah. I just like when they did the cartridge cases, I think they made, whatever it was, 500 or 1,000 cases, and then somebody just has to house those for a while until the inventory runs out, and then they'll run another batch.
Right, that probably made the most sense to get that many produced because the cost per unit made sense.
Yep. So I'm happy to build something. Just pick what you want.
I'm sorry, John Strong.
Oh, and Jim, is it free to talk about some of your other projects you've shared with us? I don't know how public those are.
Well, still working on them. I'd like to. I guess I'm kind of. I don't want to give everything away before CoCoFEST. So I would say.
Okay, mum's the word then. Yeah. Okay, that's the reason I hadn't spoken. Okay.
But yeah, it almost sounds like we need a CoCo consortium.
It's very different. And we're just learning to see what people will support. Okay.
Very true.
Because Jim says, well, he's done it enough, and he's built some profit in to help cover that because he knows what he's going to sell. And in the CoCo market,
I think we lost John Strong.
And And so it would take to do something like he does. It's going to take more than one person, speaking up and saying, "Hey, we're interested in that," and that may be getting close to happening.
Well, okay. I know Ed and I think there's a couple other people can definitely, I think we can build whatever is, expected or wanted by the community. It's just a matter of like you said, and maybe like you've indicated, some sort of consortium that says, okay, well, here's, to be maximum compatibility, here's what it ought to be on the board, right? And here's the capabilities that ought to be present. But we'll, for the moment, we're just kind of throwing things on the wall, and we'll bring stuff to CoCoFEST and show them off, and then because it's kind of a chicken and the egg thing, right? If I come to the show and I say, well, I'll build whatever it is you want, then people say, well, build something and I'll see if I can use it. Well, somebody's got to do it first, right? Somebody's got to build it, and then the other people will pick it up and take advantage of it. So right now, building a couple prototype boards doesn't cost that much money. And so bring to the show, hand a few of them out, and then, I guess the other half of the equation is if someone like Ed or I hand out a board or give a board to somebody, then there's kind of an unwritten expectation that do something with it, make something useful out of it, because maybe that'll generate demand.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just also want to just throw out there too, I appreciate the fact that people are making things. It's nice to have things to buy and plug into your CoCo. The CoCo SDC is definitely one of the greatest inventions of at least the 20th century. And everything else that continues to come out. I certainly appreciate the efforts of everybody who are working on these hardware and software projects. And so hopefully I'm not alone in that too.
Could I get Jim to repeat the last part of his conversation? It totally dropped out on my end.
Let's see. Well, I said basically it is it's kind of a chicken and egg problem, because if you don't have something to bring to the show or bring and show to people, and yet they say, well, if you can build something, then I'll try and use it. They have to kind of have it in their hand. So you can end up with, people don't want to build for something that doesn't exist, and people don't want to build the product for a software piece that doesn't exist. So in effect, you have to, somebody has to go first, right? Somebody has to, either the software has to be there or the hardware, and probably it's easier for the hardware to show up first. So I think that's where, Ed and I and maybe Mark Marlette and other people are building these kind of ideas, and we'll throw them out there, and then hopefully people will take them and build some software around them. And when they build some software around them, then they might generate some demand. And if they generate demand, then that's probably the beginning of your standards, right? What resonated with people.
Okay, well, just, let you know.
Now we're losing John again.
Yep.
John, we need to start a Patreon account just to fix John's broadband.
I wonder if he's on Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Well, I was just thinking, with all the hardware development that's going on in the community, we ought to call ourselves collectively the Digital Shack.
The Digital Shack. Not bad, not bad. What do you guys think about that, the Digital Shack?
I'm still
John's still
marveling
trying to
over
come in.
the CoCo abstraction layer.
Oh, you like that? I came up with that one on the fly.
That sounds so cool.
That was a good one.
Let's see what we can do.
Now John Strong's coming back. Hey, John.
Yes.
We resume John's rant, already in progress. John.
Well, he's gone again.
Yeah, it started to come up on the CoCo mailing list when they were talking about, using drive wires, network protocols, and everything else. And so I just wanted to throw in my wish list of the CoCo abstraction layer, this universal holy grail emulator that would not only bring CoCo software to the larger audience, but maybe even introduce multiplayer to it as well, where there were benefits to having a human being sitting on the couch next to you to playing a game. The actual what they used to call that, socialization. That was the 1980s concept. But to have remote online gameplay on a CoCo game would be a cool feature too.
I'd like to say thank you to all the people that do the hardware development, because after the experiences I've been having for the last 2 weeks just trying to get into it myself, I'm realizing this isn't as easy as I thought it was going to be.
That's why I don't touch hardware.
See, and on the other hand, I love it, but software is not really my forte, which is strange because I'm a software developer in my day job. So,
yeah, that is different.
Yeah. Well, I'm back. I got knocked off completely.
Hey, John Strong is back.
Welcome back, John.
Well, I actually checked about upgrading my bandwidth here recently, and when I moved in, they told me that they were going to get 50 megs here real soon, and it's been a year and a half, and I called, and they don't have it yet. So,
yeah. Are you wired or wireless right now?
The laptop's actually on my wireless network, but I'm sitting next to the router.
Hmm.
So.
Yeah, because wired, even if you're near the router, actually works a lot better than wireless near a router. I mean, there's interference and all kinds of crap that can go on with wireless. So
I can actually plug it in. I've got a network cable here someplace.
Yeah.
That should be more stable.
So who else has got something they want to chime in about as far as anything CoCo related, either a project you're working on or something you want to tease that you're going to speak about at the fest, or something you're looking forward to seeing at the fest, anything like that?
I'm really happy Rick's actually redoing his game. I'm ecstatic about that.
Well, I'm glad that you're glad. It's kind of frustrating for me because I'm like, wow, I used to be really good at this stuff. And now it's like, how do you get into P mode 4? How do you do this?
I went through the same thing when I was kind of getting back into it about a year ago myself, so I can sympathize.
I'm excited to see.
I know all the right things to be concerned about, but I don't really know how to do them yet. So I'll get there. It's like, it's almost certain that I'm not going to get it going before the fest. That would be a miracle if that happened.
I mean, Rick, you can't sell yourself short here, because you haven't touched it in how many years have it been since you touched the 6809?
Like 38 years. 30 years.
Yeah, so 30 years, and you've already got it, so you've got an assembly language program that's actually making your title screen with your own font and stuff. And Steve wants to learn to do this stuff too, and I mean, he hasn't even got that far yet. So
yeah. It's definitely an inspiration to just. It was always an inspiration to me when people did stuff in assembly language. Back when the CoCo was new, and I always thought that was something that was an adult thing. That's what grown-ups did. I'm a kid. I'll program in BASIC. I went to college to learn how to program, and I just assumed that's when you're going to learn assembly language. The adults learn assembly. The kids work on BASIC. I was very disappointed when I went to college that they weren't teaching assembly. They were teaching like DBase and freaking worthless dead languages that were already dead back then. That I actually dropped out of programming college because I'm like, dude, if I can't learn assembly and I can't learn how to make games, I'm wasting my time because this isn't fun. So,
well, you know what's funny, Steve, is talking about that at a young age. I remember there was something on the news, wasn't there, that there was actually a 7-year-old that was attacking was it the CIA or the FBI's database? A 7-year-old, for God's sakes.
Wow. Yeah.
So, yeah, age don't matter when it comes to programming.
No, it's true. It's true. I used to hang out at my local Radio Shack. I'm sure we all have the same story. And I remember one of the sales guys back then saying, "Hey, if you want, I will buy you this Edtasm cartridge." And I was like, "No, dude, that's like, whoa, that's like sorcery. I just no, I'm just I'm a dumb kid. I won't get it. I didn't even try because I just was in my mind that there's certain things that kids do and there's other things that other people do, and it never dawned on me I could even possibly learn to screw with that language. I think. You know? I think Barry just joined us.
No.
Hey, Barry.
There's Barry.
Let's see.
All right. So no, I think it's great that these things still happen. And what's also great too is that when somebody puts out I'm trying to follow the text chat, and you guys are speaking assembly in this text chat going on right now. Okay, I'm going to hang up on Barry for a second because he's stepping on our deep discussion here. But yeah, I'm following your text chat, and you guys are sharing information. So there's so much collective information right now in this community, and it's great. It's great that you guys are forthcoming with this information too, and not saying, no, this is my trade secret. I'm not going to show you how I did this. You got to figure it out yourself, jackass. You know, so. That spirit of cooperation is also inspiring.
Well, another thing is there. Some of us are not writers. Okay.
Hold on a second.
Writers. Okay, and so having this to talk,
So I'm
so
trying
much
to figure out.
easier for me to share this information because.
What?
For me to write it out, I could do 100 lines of assembly code faster than I can, do the other way. You know, and so there's times I can write English, I do good, but I've got to be in a very certain mindset to be able to do it.
No.
And it's very easy to get out of that mindset. Whereas I see people like Alan Huffman, he does something and boom, he's writing about it, and that's great.
Mm-hmm.
It's not me. I can get on here and talk about it. Okay, I sit down and write demo code like I did for Rick the other night to try to help, but I'm just not the one to do that. Yeah, I've got a blog, but I update it there because to me it's hard for me to do. It's easier for me to do the code and just put it together. But that's just me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, writing actual text explaining how you're doing things is a whole different skill set than actually writing code.
It is, and I can, and I've done it. It's just not, which do I want to do? Do I want to create the full game, or do I want to take all the time to write it? Because now it's going to take me 3 times longer to explain it than to do it. Which do I do? And so that's why I get on some of these and get enjoying, especially when we can talk. And as Rick, the other night, said, hey, can we talk voice? Because in a few minutes, I could ask questions, get there while I'm trying to think, okay, how do I make this sound right? Don't I sound stupid when I type? And if I sound stupid when I'm talking, okay, it's normal, I'm used to it. But there, it was written down, it's typed there, it's for everybody to see, and it's a more comfortable verbal.
Mm-hmm.
It's just me, and people can get afraid to get up and talk. Yeah, it'll psych me out a little bit if it's a bunch of people I don't know. If I get going, it doesn't bother me, And so, but writing something for something, now you're punished.
Right. And I think everybody's kind of their own worst documenter and proofreader and spell checker because you know what you meant, you know what it's supposed to mean and what it's supposed to do. And you almost need like a non-biased third party to either proof it or just do it for you so it can be read in a way that that other people will understand, I think, sometimes.
Yeah. And so this is the other avenue that these things going on that gives us, that helps open up into, because everybody, like you said, everybody's different on this, okay? And I've done some teaching in the past. Everybody learns differently, okay? And some are verbal, some have to hear it as well as see it. Some have to do it. Okay, so this gives us the means to share this information.
Yeah, it's definitely an inspiration, and it's something that I'm going to try to jump into hopefully in the near future. I was hoping last year that I would have had some type of assembly project I could have unveiled this year at CoCoFEST, but, you know, as the old saying goes, life gets in the way. But so I'm still optimistic that for CoCoFEST 27, maybe I'll have some type of assembly project I can show off then. So it's hard not to be inspired at this point of everything that's going on, you know.
And you know, I look at some of these great things out there these guys are doing, and yeah, I've been doing this a lot, but you know, I'm very impressed, you know, by what I'm seeing, and especially in the hardware, some of the cool stuff that's being done. That, you know, the guys I mentioned earlier, Mark and Hugo and Thayer, and you know, doing some of these games and stuff. You know, it's really cool to see all of that. And I'm so excited, you know, about Rick being back in the community with us. You know, and you know, I don't feel like the old guy now. Totally. He's
Wait a second. Who are you calling old guy here? We're all a bunch of young whippersnappers.
I don't yet.
What are you talking about, you old whippersnappers?
Back in my day, we only had one bit, and we were lucky, and we were happy.
We were lucky that sucker was even able to turn on.
Had to walk 3 miles in the snow barefoot up hills both ways.
You had
Carrying a backpack full of punch cards.
Rick, I read this guy who takes that right. But, you know, I've had people in the community, oh, well, like Stevie Strow, oh, you do that, you know, and Neil, and like, oh, you guys are great stuff. And to me, it's like, well, I just stuck around long enough, you know. You know, guys like Rick and Nick and Steve Bjork, they were the, you know, the rock stars back then, you know.
I love that
Del
term.
Del Puckett and Del Lear. I met Del Lear, and he was just a really great, personable person to talk to. I mean, you meet him once, you feel like you're your friends.
Yep.
So,
Dale Lear was my carpool buddy when I lived in California. That's where that connection.
Yeah, and speaking of assemblies, we have Ed Snyder here right now too. If you've been watching any of Ed's videos recently, where he's got the dancing girls and the music playing, you know, it's a personal favorite of mine. James Ross was saying that Hugo's game is looking really good. It's on the Facebook group. He's been showing his little video player and audio sampler and stuff.
Semigraphics 24 or Semigraphics 24 audio video player running off the CoCo SDC.
Yeah, and we have Hugo. Hugo's been very quiet, but Hugo's working on a very cool looking game too. So feel free to chime in anytime, Hugo.
Well, sorry. Right now, as I listen to your conversation about cartridges, which is really interesting, I'm working on a better sprite compiler. I really want to accelerate the game and have as many animations as possible running at the same time. Really, it's a challenge, but I think we're getting there. Also, I'm getting some help from Simon in Denmark. He's very good in assembly. By the way, if I don't know what's the limit, the amount of RAM you can put on a cartridge, like on a classic CoCo cartridge, is it 32K?
Well, 32K is the most you can do before you do bank switching.
Okay.
And 32K only works on the CoCo 3. Your limit is 16K on a CoCo 2.
Okay, well that's okay, because really, if I can make it, I will have my game fit within 32K. I'm building it with that in mind, but it will run on a 512K CoCo 3. So lots of things will expand in memory.
Yeah. I'm going to invite you to contact me on Skype sometime where we can share video. I may have stuff to help you.
That would be really appreciated because I have very little experience working with hardware and circuits. All I did was a little bit of Arduino, and that's about it.
Well, I'm going to, if they don't mind, I'm going to see if I can find it and bring it up here to share a screen real quick with you.
Okay, cool.
With y'all, and I'm on a laptop doing this, so it just takes me.
Yeah. Is my sound okay?
Oh yeah, no, loud and clear.
Okay, because I do very little Skype.
Off of the counter, and I pulled out mine, and yours fell.
Yeah, just go ahead and talk. I'm just looking for stuff to bring up to show you.
Okay.
In a minute, so.
Yeah,
your game is looking good, Hugo, from what we've seen.
Thank you. It's amazing the amount of stuff we can fit within 32K. I think if you start really thinking, planning ahead with all the constraints, you can do something that will look amazing. People are getting really lazy today with the amount of RAM we have. I mean, you can do anything and everything. But for example, instead of using sampled sounds, I'm working with Simon to have just a few wavetables and actually generate the sounds when the game is run, and expand the sounds in RAM, because there's a lot of RAM in the CoCo tree. So combining a few waves, we will emulate sounds instead of having them recorded and digitized. So this is one of the other approaches that I'm using to reduce the memory footprint of the source.
That's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. Yeah, you know what I'm going to do real quick? I'm going to bring up, while John Strong is getting ready to do his screen share, I'm going to do my own screen share real quick, and I'm going to bring up Ed Snyder's demo. And so let me see what I got going on here right now. I'm not exactly sure how well this is going to work. So tell me what you guys can see right now on the Skype call. Can you guys see me bringing up Facebook right now?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to bring up Ed's video. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to hear it, but I'm going to make this full screen. And this is Ed's video player. It's doing semi-graphics video and digital music.
I hope the girl will be at the CoCoFEST.
Yes, I hope she's going to be there too.
Well, you never know. She might.
So this is a cool project.
Yeah, and he's mentioned on the chat there that he's got a new version that should be running a lot faster. I'm not sure if that's still 6.809 or if that's a 6.309 version.
Very psychedelic.
That's pretty incredible.
And this is on the Facebook group, so you guys should join the CoCo Facebook group too.
That doesn't bode well for your. We were talking about a consortium to have just one place or one kind of design. You can't even have one place to have everybody.
I know.
Hang out with, right? There's the mailing list and the Facebook group and
an IRC chat and.
Oh yeah, which I didn't even know about the IRC chat, and there's this. So.
Yeah, the IRC chat is one of the things that I use quite a bit to chat with William Assel, and sometimes Brett is there. Kieran, the author of XRoar, is usually on there too. So it's interesting to get different conversations from different standpoints from all these groups.
Okay, if I may, I'll do a screen share.
John Strong, you have the floor.
Okay. All right, just the Skype works different than the one for business, so I feel. But so basically, what I have here is a tool that I do tile maps and such. And as you can see, I have different tiles here, different tile pickers. Where I can choose them different ways, and I can do the edit and so on. And here, the other window, show map. We can do a map of what we have with that. Okay.
Is it an application that you built yourself?
Yes.
That's nice. Your tools are way better looking than my tools.
Well, the thing is, this is my personal tools, so it never gets documented. We explained part of the reason before. I'm not a writer, okay? But I'm willing to share, but you need to be able to Skype with me for a session so I can show you how to use it, okay? And I can show you what things. And
sorry, I'm a technical writer, so I won't comment on that.
Well, that's fine. Technical writer. I'm not. I've got a brother who's a great writer. Okay, not me. Okay, and so we also have, and I've got to improve this a little bit because it's just a simple one.
Just a question, can you save your tiles compressed, like with RLE strategy or something like that?
I have not really put a compression on the tiles themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a version of a simple compression for the map.
Okay.
But if somebody has a different way they want to do that, I could probably add it in.
Okay, because we could definitely work together. I have developed quite a few algorithms that seem to work fine in specific situations. For example, my palette converter, which seems to work pretty fine. So maybe it could be integrated into your tool. Also, I have an image compressor, and I know Simon has also worked on very good image compression, but mostly for sounds. Now I'm more interested in graphics, and he's more into sounds. So so your tiles, you can define tiles with different sizes?
Yes, so I can choose the size I want
to
work from. And
are you generating binary or ASM code?
I can generate binary. I'm doing assembly right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Hey guys, real quick, I'm going to put my microphone on mute. I've got to step away for a few minutes. I'll be back, but go ahead and carry on.
I really like the fact that you can animate and flip through the animation.
Well, this is.
There were similar tools in some of the older drawing software, but seems to have disappeared from more recent software. So this is really nice.
This does run faster than what it does over Skype.
Yeah. Nice.
Okay. And this is actually, and I need to optimize it some. I haven't, because I really haven't to the place where I needed to. And being a personal tool, something doesn't get added till I come idea. It's just cool enough. I think I have to add it, or it's something I need.
Have you programmed that in C#, Java, or something else?
This is actually, I do kind of mostly C within a C++ environment. Okay. I use a tool, it's called C++ Builder.
Okay. I'm a total, I'm really bad in C++. I can almost destroy your computer just by trying to write "Hello World." I was never good with that, but I can program in other languages that are I have a better understanding.
C can be a pain, okay? But
Yeah,
it's
I come
hard.
from the Turbo Pascal world, so
Well,
the conversion
actually,
doesn't work.
well, that you understand, this is actually a cousin to Turbo Pascal, because Turbo Pascal has gone to Delphi now.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
is Delphi dead or is it still alive?
It's still alive. In fact,
Nice.
it's cross-platform. Just announced their support for Linux server. Okay, and you can get their starter edition for free.
It's very nice. I should definitely have a look. I haven't looked at Delphi for so many years. I think last time was in 2002. Can you believe it? So
It's done a lot of changes, and they got. If you understand the Delphi, you understand VCL then. Okay, and so they have VCL component a framework. I'm sorry, this is over you guys' others' heads for possibly for a couple minutes, and they have the FireMonkey framework.
Okay.
The FireMonkey framework works for native applications, and you can actually write one application that runs on Windows, Mac, Android, iOS, and now starting to support Linux. But I use the C++ builder because Windows calls are in C and and stuff. And so I use this part of the time in my day job. But this is something I use here. And this is my compiler. I can cause it to generate the code if I click the button. And it actually generates assembly code and so forth. It still needs some work. It's just some new conversions. But I can do a lot of things with it. With the maps, well, I need to load back the other project to get the...
Just a question. Is there a space on the Color Computer archive where we could share the tools, maybe, with other developers? Or is it something that
I prefer to share it on a one-to-one basis, because if I can get somebody to go one-on-one that I can show it, then they can understand it. I've tried sharing it with some people in the past who don't understand what it's doing.
Okay.
And it really needs some one-on-one time with you so you can understand my mindset to see how it works. And that's if it works for you. Okay. And that way we can, make sure you can use it. But
are you using a standard palette, or we can load or define our own palette from the CoCo tree palette, the EGA palette?
You can define it.
Okay, good.
Okay. You can redefine it. I've got a crude color mapper, so you can remap it.
Nice. How advanced is your game project right now?
This one has just really started.
Okay, because you have lots of work. Definitely, you are building your tool and your game, I guess, alternating between both.
Well, I always end up doing that because as I build a different game, I end up needing some more tools to do it right. Okay. And so as I come in and say, well, I'm doing this, I'm doing not too much work and design it in the game, I go say, okay, can I build it in the tool? And then I jump over the tool, we'll build it for a while. And then I go back to the game. And so...
Will you fit that game into a cartridge? Or
this is intended to be a cartridge, okay? That has been the goal on this particular one, to be a cartridge.
I think the format of this game would be perfect for a cartridge, definitely. I was thinking about Rampage, which was, in my opinion, not such a good game. So this game could be what I expected from a game like Rampage, like something fun where a building gets pounced and destroyed. But in that specific case, you actually prevent it. which is even more fun.
Yeah. And so we have things like this, and I can actually copy and paste these sections from the map and move those around.
Okay.
We can do, this needs to be worked on some more, but I've got a text builder tool that we can do a bunch of things, and I actually have corresponding assembly language code to use this in my program.
Okay, so you generate some kind of a tile map that after assembling your tiles there, you just export it, and it will generate an array in the code. Okay. Oh, so and you can view the code that's generated in the same window. Am I correct?
This is you're not going to see this in the window. It says the assembly. This is actually my text code for doing special things with text. And so let's get a color. And then that's generated as a set of macros that acts as control codes for my text writing in the game.
Are you using the default font in the CoCo tree or your own font?
My own fonts.
Okay. I guess anything would look better than the default.
Well, actually, I have one that's called Bold, and it looks pretty nice because it's just wide enough. It's a lot more readable, and so on. But I have those fonts. I have a font editor that runs on Windows. I have one that runs on CoCo.
Oh, wow.
Okay, the CoCo one was sold years ago, commercially, advertised in Rainbow, etc.
Oh.
And so I can generate these things, and if I wanted to generate the macros, I just did what's up there. I can do that. I can edit that. I cut and paste that into my assembly program, and call my print routine, and it prints it on the screen.
Nice.
Okay, but these are the things, that as a technical writer, you've seen what I've done so far. You realize there's a lot to explain that.
Definitely, but I think since your interface and your tools are pretty well integrated, they have also a uniform and coherent look. Having just a section, if you want to write documentation, for example, having just a section on the general principles would really help. Then would make the documentation easier to understand after that. So after that, you just have like screenshots, little arrows or numbers, and you go through the options, and people already know what to expect.
Well,
so I don't see this as a big deal.
Well, I probably could write documentation for this. Okay. Not that I would like to, but I probably could.
Most people don't like to do that.
Okay. But the other problem is, as far as for me, this is always changing. Okay? It's like I've got some cool features that is only hinted at here, okay, that I need to finish on the way the text is working. And it's not saving in my map.
Hello?
And so it's going to be saving it in the map files.
You know what? Sorry, Stevie seems to be thinking, if they could only stop talking about this and just build the game so I can play.
No, I'm listening. I'm listening intently. Okay, who's got the car alarm going off in the background now?
Oh God, you can hear that, huh? Hold on a second.
Yeah.
They turned it off there.
All right.
So, do you think you'll have a prototype running in time for Tandy? What's the name of that one?
Tandy Assembly?
Yeah, something like that.
I intend to have another game running by Tandy Assembly.
Oh, which one?
Well, I should have Dr. CoCo running, because I should be able to have time to get.
Oh, yeah, that was good looking. I mean, very elegant design, very simple yet elegant. I really liked it. So, some people want to put textures and all kinds of digitized stuff on screen. You stayed with you kept it simple, and I like the way you did it.
Yeah. Well, and I like what I've seen you post. Okay, and I want to encourage that. So, and even went so far as adding some extra tools in here. This shows me how tiles are used within the game and stuff. And
how many people do you think, if at all, anybody back in the 80s had a tool set like this for the CoCo? Probably not, right?
No.
Isn't Nick Marantes still developing most of his stuff on vintage systems?
Yes.
Yeah, he does his graphics, some of his sound on his Amiga, and he does all the programming on the CoCo itself.
This is hardcore.
It's hardcore. Yeah.
I'll be honest, I'm doing the same thing with my project too. So.
Nice. I'm using a lot of all my tools run on the command line. And I feel hardcore, but when I see what these guys do, it's amazing.
I mean, for Nick and me, it's the retro feel. I mean, I can use modern tools and cross-develop and all that stuff, but then it doesn't feel like retro to me.
Well,
so it's just personal preference. There's no wrong way to do it, and I'll tell you, it definitely takes a hell of a lot longer to assemble something when you're doing it natively on the CoCo.
This is the reason I like kind of the retro, but this replaces a part you really didn't do on the computer in the past. When I started out, you was doing all this stuff in graph paper.
Yep.
Okay. And so, I don't feel bad at all doing my design work here. Now, I will say my original games that were published, Soviet Bloc and Gems, the graphics was actually done with
Color Max Deluxe or something?
Yeah, Color Max. Okay. And I actually had a clipboard routine on that. I decoded his clipboard format, wrote a program in BASIC, it generated my data statements for the graphics.
Wow.
Okay. And so this is just, part of my tools I use. I've got stuff that goes to ROMs. I've got editors that I've wrote and a disassembler. It's all in different stages. I get bored of one project, I go work on something else, or I need this feature, so I do something to let me look at this. And I get back to writing the game, or life interrupts and how it goes. But, feel free to set up some time after you go. Go with it. If you're going to be at the fest, come by my booth.
Hugo, are you going to make it to CoCoFEST?
I was hopeful to go, but then lots of my plans changed, and I can't make it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So maybe Tandy Assembly. I don't know how big an event it is. Is it the first time they do that?
Yes, it will be the first.
October. Where is it?
Chillicothe, Ohio? Is that where it's at?
Yes, it's south of Columbus, Ohio.
Okay, well, it's same distance as going to Chicago for me. So really, if I can afford to go to Chicago, I can afford to go to Columbus.
Right.
That is the only thing is that I wanted to visit a specific restaurant in Chicago, and so you have to find something interesting to eat in Columbus if you want me to come there.
If I could throw out a Ferris Bueller reference, maybe we can run into Abe Froman, the Sausage King of Chicago.
Wasn't there a Thanksgiving parade in that movie?
Yes, a little bit of donkey shade going on there too.
Yeah, that was good. That was good.
Oh man, yeah. Are we still screen sharing at this point? I think. Are you still screen sharing?
I'm not sure how to shut that off. Is it shut off? It's still. It looks.
I think you got to click on the little plus and hit stop sharing screen or something like that.
Oh, I see it.
Try
There you
Control
go.
Alt Delete.
Yeah,
Control Alt Delete always does the job.
Yeah, hold in the power button for 10 seconds.
Yes.
Right.
Pull that snaky thing from the wall coming out of the back there. Yeah. I think it's called a plug. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I'm on a laptop, so I pull that and it still keeps going.
Or you can run PuTTY and have a single board computer and downloading a program to it, and it crashes your Windows, and you're gone for 10 minutes.
All right. This has definitely been the longest CoCo talk we've had so far. We've been talking now for 2 hours and almost 15 minutes, and it never gets old to me. But yeah, I mean,
No.
it's great. I started this thinking, what are we going to talk about? And
That's kind of like the CoCo Crew podcast, which is now
Yes.
3 hours plus.
Yeah, there is no shortage of things to talk about, for sure.
And Hugo, I wanted to share that. I thought I could help you. I didn't want to steal your talk.
Well, we'll have to, if you can share your tools with me, I will certainly use the tools that are complementary to what I've programmed, because my goal in that is not to program all my tools myself. I mean, the goal is the game. So if I can reuse something that someone has done without having to punch in and run away with the tool, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, well, just my email's out there. Pretty easy to get. Contact me. We'll get something set up, and I'll show you some of the things to watch out, because there's a few places, there's some errors yet you're going to run into. They're very easy to get around if you know what they are, and that's the reason why they haven't been fixed. It takes less time for me to work around it than it is to fix it.
Sure. That's
it's like when there's a cracked stair in your staircase. You know exactly where not to put your foot. But your guests all break a leg.
Yeah.
Yes, that idea. That's the reason why it's like, okay, I want one-on-one with the person, so I can show them some of that stuff.
It won't reformat my hard drive or something.
No, it's
unless you step on that certain stair.
Yeah, Ed Snyder chimed in on the text chat. He says, cross-development for me, wading through that code on the CoCo, that's hardcore for sure.
I think it's just me and Nick that still do that.
Yeah, we're getting some noise right now. Who's got the noise?
I was going to say something. It's probably me. Is Jim Brain still on the call? And this will probably either cause everybody to run away or ask me what the idea is. I have an idea.
I believe Jim's still here.
Call.
Huh?
I'm here.
He's here, Barry.
Oh. So I was recently looking at where somebody was trying to do drive wire over an Ethernet or Wi-Fi connection.
Yeah, that's Brett Gordon.
Right, and I have a related idea. I noticed that there is an Arduino shield for Wi-Fi. I'm wondering what the thoughts would be on if we took an Arduino and we programmed it to emulate a Hayes modem and open a TCP stream and act like a modem, except instead of dialing numbers, you would be dialing IP addresses.
Well, such a thing is a great idea. I already had the idea, and I've already written the two components for it. So
you have?
Well, yeah, because a long time ago, this is prior to Arduinos, but a long time ago, a group of folks got to me and they said they needed a way to use their classic computers on the internet, and they wanted something that would emulate a Hayes modem. And so if you go out on the internet now, you can find a program that's been around for a long time called TCP-SER, TCP-SER.
I'm familiar with that.
Yep. So,
but that thing takes a full computer, a laptop or a desktop, or I'm talking about scaling it down and getting all that to run.
I understand. I understand, but the goal of TCP-SER was part of a multi-step process, right? The first one was to get the program to work under a large operating system like Linux or Windows, which is what I developed. And then I took the version of the code that I had, which is written in Portable C, and I worked on recompiling it to run on a smaller system like an Arduino. because the code is just straight C, and I do a lot of development for the AVR, which is the heart of most Arduinos, AVR GCC. So I have a version of the TCP SIR code that runs on an Arduino. Actually, it runs on an AVR. I could probably get it to run on Arduino. And then I guess the other piece is, how do you anticipate connecting that to the CoCo?
I was thinking either the 4-pin port or RS-232C.
Nope.
You know, put a standard RS-232 connector on it. Have it externally. Put it, you know, if you have a case for it, have the case look like an old style modem.
Mm-hmm.
You know, package the whole thing up. Maybe put some little lights on it for carrier detect, etc., for nostalgic sake, right? Yep. And you know, have it. Basically, it would work exactly like an old modem used to work.
Yep.
Except that it would, you know, be connecting over the internet. Did your device? Is it connecting? What type of shield is it use, or what is it using for the Ethernet or Wi-Fi? Is it Ethernet or Wi-Fi, and is it solid?
So I didn't necessarily develop for the Arduino. I developed for the AVR, and the chip I developed for at the time, you got to remember this was a number of years ago, was Ethernet, not Wi-Fi. But I have purchased a Wi-Fi shield here in actually the last week. I purchased it, so hopefully it'll be here before CoCoFEST. And the unit I bought is, because it was cheap and easy to get at, was an ESP8266 Wi-Fi shield. And I have some ESP8266s here, but I went ahead and bought an Arduino shield, because that way, you know, if somebody wanted to replicate what I was doing, they could just buy the shield. And so when it comes in, I'll see if I can retrofit my code to work against the Wi-Fi shield. It shouldn't be that difficult.
I was reading that the ESP286 though is unstable and has a bad firmware.
That's what Brett says, and that's fine. But I was looking at another shield that I think it uses a different chip, and there's a library to drive it. That's fair, but I think the key is if you get it to work for like the ESP8266, and somebody says, well, I don't like that shield, I want a different shield. As long as you make the TCP/IP function, kind of maybe to use your statement, Steve, the abstraction, right? So if you create an abstraction library, then you can say, I don't really care what shield you use, but I need you to open a connection, I need you to send some data, I need you to receive some data, and I need you to close a connection. Okay, so, well, the key is, I'm going to get it to work with an ESP8266 and then show it off, and then of course the code will be open source and folks can tinker around with it however they want. I think the key is, is the 8266, what I saw from Brett's perspective was that it's not very good in multiple connections, but when you're doing a simple Hayes emulated connection, you only have one connection you have to worry about in the totality, right? If you're going to do... Right, go ahead. I was thinking about that too. So I don't know that it'll be I don't know that it'd be a problem if you're only doing one connection. So. Well, hopefully not. Yep. How are you going to handle the escape out of the? Are you going to implement the 3-second pause plus 3-second pause on the emulation? TCP SIR code already does that, so I don't have to worry about that piece. I just have to implement the part that does Ethernet or Wi-Fi. Sorry. Okay. Because this also, presuming once you establish the connection with this thing, then you have essentially a transparent, serial connection that goes through Wi-Fi. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, assuming that you set up. Go ahead. I was going to say, we used to do that. We ran 2 copies of my program on. So this has probably been 12 years ago or so when we first came up with the program. But we had a version running at my house, and we ran a game that needed a modem, right? It needed to talk to the modem, and then I shipped a copy of my software off to somebody in Toronto, and they ran a copy of my program, and they had another computer sitting on the end of their PC to do the same thing. And so we played with the computers thinking that they were connected to each other through a telephone line, but in fact they weren't. They were connected to the internet.
That's pretty cool.
It is. It was really cool. It was a big deal at the time, and so that kind of ushered in, at least at the time anyway, the kind of Telnet BBS kind of mode where folks would take their classic PCs and they'd hook them up to their regular PC, and they'd have them be able to do answering, or you can do both ways. You can either have it run as a modem on the client side calling out, or you can run it like on a BBS server or a BBS, and you can have it kind of listen for connections on the internet, and then when it gets a connection, it does connect 2400 or connect 9600 or whatever, and the DTR line goes high, and the computer thinks, oh, the modem has got a connection, I'm going to start sending data to it.
Will it run at 115/200 if the CoCo can keep up?
It will run at that, although that's dependent on the Arduino or the AVR. They can run at 115 no problem. It's the classic computer that can be a bit challenging, right? 115 is pretty fast.
Well, if we could just modify DriveWire so it would just open a TCP port and listen on it, then if you combine that with one of these devices, now you've got your DriveWire on wireless, because once you establish the connection, you've got essentially a clear serial channel.
It's true. I think the key though is a lot of what I'm suggesting is, okay, the bitbanger port's fine, but if you really want to do reasonable speeds, you probably want to do a RS-232 pack type cartridge, right? You plug the cartridge in. It's got because you gotta ship some sort of Arduino or AVR board or whatever somewhere. So you might as well just put it all in a cartridge and then write the code as if you're talking to the RS-232 pack. And the RS-232 pack won't be there, but there'll be a chip that thinks, or that makes it look like a RS-232 pack, but on the other end of it will be a Wi-Fi connection.
Right, that's pretty cool. I want to kind of wrap this up in the next couple of minutes, and I'm sorry you guys are starting a whole new topic. Maybe we can bring that over to next week as well. I gotta kiss the kids goodnight here in a minute. So this has been a lot of fun. I don't want to discourage this, and I hope we can bring this up again next week. But yeah, we're going on 2.5 hours. I never would have expected that. So I'm sorry to cut in the middle there, but love to bring that topic back up next week and all kinds of other things. This has been great. We've had a lot of people. Even like right now, we've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people in the call. At the moment, we've had at least 2 or 3 people drop off at this point now. So this was a good call. We had like up to 10 people at once. We didn't break the internet, so that's good. And thanks for being here, Barry. It's great to have you. Great to have Barry on the call and have Jim Brain on the call, who we haven't had on before. So some new blood to our little CoCo Talks here. Certainly not new blood to the community, but new blood to our little internet thing here. I think this is great.
She hasn't said anything, but you also got Leanne. Say hello.
Hi.
That's the programmer for the CoCo Flash menu.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys again at CoCoFEST. There were so many new faces, it was hard to say hi to everybody, but hopefully, a year has come by. We're not going to be quite as much as strangers this year, so we'll get the chance to chat some more in 20 days. When I'm
Unfortunately,
there
Unfortunately, I don't think I'll be making the trip this year. I live down in Florida, and it's quite a trip for me. But
I'm in Florida,
I don't know,
too.
maybe next year or the year after.
Where are you in Florida?
All the way down south on the southern tip. And between that and my work schedule, I just don't think it's going to work out. I'm going to be able to make it up there this year.
Okay.
It's quite a trip, but maybe next year or the year after. I do plan on eventually going up there again, but it's not something I can do every year.
It's understandable. I had the same issue.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the project and the progress you're making on that flash cartridge demo. I liked watching that video. That was very cool. I look forward to things like that. I think there's pros and cons and to these different technologies. Like the CoCo SDC has got a lot of benefits to it, but there are some unelegant aspects of it as well, which some of those have been addressed. I think having the flash is great, and having your menu. I'm all about user friendly. If you can dumb it down to where I can use it, it's a good product. So I like some of these projects that are allowing us to have simple ways to load things up, menu driven ways, and bringing accessibility to the non-technophiles is always a great thing.
Yeah, unfortunately, the flash card's probably going to require a certain amount of technical expertise. We are in the process of writing a manual for the process of flashing a new item into the cart and updating the menu and everything. We have maybe about 50 to 70% or so written. It's going to be a process because you're flashing a ROM and you're updating a ROM menu. So, one of the things.
I see. So the final product is user friendly, but getting there takes a little bit of blood, sweat, and tears.
You have to have the program that you're writing into the cartridge. One of the requirements, since it's written on the color computer, in order for it to recognize and load the binary and flash it into the cart, it needs to be a CoCo binary, which means it has to have the header and the footer to, it can't be a raw ROM image. So it needs to have a header, it needs to load at address 4000 hex, and then it can be up to 16K long, okay? And it needs to be a .bin file. So I'm going to write some utilities to convert ROMs into .bin files and whatnot, and make that probably a little bit easier. There's a little basic program that if you put your ROM there as a raw, data file, and you have it as a data file, I've got a basic program that will read the bytes 1 byte at a time, poke them into memory, and then save it out as a bin file. So it's a little utility that does that.
Yeah, cool.
But then again, you have to also understand about banks and different ROM types, etc. And I am writing a manual to help with all of that too. But it's not like the CoCo SDC, which it emulates a floppy drive, and if you know how to use a floppy drive, you can use the CoCo SDC.
Gotcha.
But this fills a different niche. It's for stuff that you can't easily run. Some of the game cartridges you can't run easily from a floppy drive. You have to have them in a cartridge. So this allows you to run some of those things. Also allows you to develop new stuff and test it in a cartridge format without having So.
Right. A product for all needs is what it's seeming like. Very, very cool. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap it up, I think. I want to thank everybody for being here, everybody who's here now, plus everybody who was with us on the call, and everybody who's been in the chat. So we've had a pretty good chat. We've had up to like 12.5 people watching us live in the chat as well. So we're not the only crazy people who want to talk about this. There's even crazier people who will sit here and listen to us talk about it. So thanks to those jackasses too. So great way to win an audience, right? That's so yeah, this is cool.
Marketing is not your strong point.
I don't have a strong point. No. All right, guys. Thanks for another great CoCo Talk. So we'll just say goodbye to people who are still here right now. Mark Overholzer, John Strong, David Ladd, Curtis Boyle, Barry Nelson, Kip Kuhn was here. Jim Brain just left us a little while ago. Rick Adams was here. Hugo DeFort was here. Who else was here? I don't even remember. We've had so many people on this call. I've lost track. My head's spinning. But yeah, good talk. Good talk. Spread the word. Maybe next week we'll get even more people on the call. My goal is to break the internet. Not only do I want to,
or at least Skype.
Yeah, not only do I want to insult my audience, but I want to break the internet at the same time. Ed Snyder has been here. Dan Shepard is here. Let's take a minute here to say hi to everybody in the chat as well. Ed Snyder was here. Ed, you need to join us on Skype too. So Ray Lord, Roblox Gaming has been here. Retro Innovations, who's Jim Brain. Jason Rothbergs was here. FiceCap was here. James Ross was here. Jason Rothbergs, I said that. Hugo, right? FiceCap. Big West Purdue was here. Yeah, so a lot of people chatting here.
Did you say Richard Bear?
Did I say Richard Bear? I don't even know. Is Richard here now?
No.
I don't know. Did I miss something?
Wasn't he here earlier? Well, the guy in the beard that y'all were saying.
Rick Adams.
Well, that was Rick Adams.
Oh, that was Rick
Adams. Rick Adams. Yeah, thank you. Richard Bear, a.k.a. Rick Adams, is here too. Grizzly Adams, Rick Adams, Richard Bear. everybody was here. So yeah, it was cool. This was cool. There's a lot of things going on. Something else that's going on behind the scenes that only us in the Skype group will know. But I started this Skype group as a way for us to make it easy to join this weekly call. And there's an ongoing text conversation going on in this Skype group. So it's become it's kind of taken on a life of its own as well. So all kinds of things are happening here. There's never been a more exciting time to be a fan of the Color Computer. And I'm along for the ride, and I can't wait to see where you guys take us. So until next week, I will say goodbye for this CoCo Talk. Anything you guys want to sign off with?
Peace, everyone.
See you all next week.
In transmission, Starfleet out.
In transmission.
End
of line.
Goodbye.